All right, this is Boxing with the Truth, and I am the Truth. Today is June 27, 2015, and today we have the privilege of having with us not only a boxing fan, an ex-pro boxer, a boxing trainer, an ESPN analyst, but as far as I'm concerned, a legend of the boxing sport itself. We have John, the Iceman Scully. How you doing today?
Everything's good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you taking time to do the interview. I know you were just at some amateur fights today with your kids, which, that's a great thing that you're still doing that and influencing the kids in the sport.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it was. That's where it all started for me and all of them, really. So we definitely have to, plant the seeds there for sure. All the boxing coaches need to keep that up.
Okay, so I just want to go over a few little stats in your career so some of the new boxing fans can understand that you actually are more than just a boxing trainer. You were a pro fighter and an amateur fighter. I mean, you were an outstanding amateur. You won numerous awards and championships. I believe your record was like 57-13. Is that correct?
Yes, 57-13. Yep.
You were in the '88 Olympic trials, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And I mean, as a pro, you've had the WBF Intercontinental Super Middleweight title and the USA New England Middleweight title, correct?
Yes, those two titles, yep.
But you've also fought for a IBO World title, an IBF World title, a WBO NABO Super Middleweight title, and a USBA Super Middleweight title, correct?
Yes, sir.
The first two, they were under light heavyweight, right? The world titles?
When I fought for that IBF and the IBO, that was that light heavyweight, yes.
Yep, okay, and you did fight at light heavyweight, and your boxing record actually as a pro was 38 wins, 21 knockouts, and 11 losses, right?
Yes, sir.
So, that's a pretty impressive resume just as a boxer.
Yep.
And we haven't even got to the training portion of your career.
I'm ready.
And just to jump ahead, as far as that with the training, you train a lot of guys, amateurs and pros. But would you say that one of the greatest moments in your training career so far has been when Chad Dawson won the world title to beat Bernard Hopkins?
Oh, for sure. And the thing is, as a trainer, the fact is you could have fights where you work the corner and a guy wins, but in the grand scheme of things, you really don't have a big input. It just doesn't unfold that way where you have a big input. Luckily for me, or fortunately, in that fight with Bernard, I was put in a position where I was tested as a trainer. Chad was tested as a fighter, but I was tested as a trainer at several points during that fight where I had to either respond like a fighter does, or I had to respond positively. And I'm happy to say that I did. So that was a big moment for him, but it was a big moment for me as well.
Okay. To jump back in your career, and I know you've talked about this several times, but I just want to bring it up one time. The Michael Nunn fight. When people bring your name up, they think of the Michael Nunn fight. Even though you didn't win that fight, that is a fight that people remember, and there was a lot of controversy with that fight, right?
Right. Well, the thing was, at the time, he was two-time world champion, and he was number one contender, and he was promoted by Bob Arum on a Bob Arum show, and he was in line to fight Roy Jones for the title. So, not that there's any, corruption, but I'm just saying they certainly didn't want him to lose at that point in his career. And so it was a tight fight, maybe not on the judge's view, but it was obviously a tight fight. And I think that, and I don't say necessarily I got robbed as far as in a corrupt manner, but I feel like I didn't get the credit I deserved because of who he was. And, in other words, maybe subconsciously they made sure I didn't win the fight because they had to keep things on course for him.
No, and I understand that. And actually, true boxing fans understand sometimes that how it goes. The bigger name, if it's a close fight, they win. It's as simple as that sometimes. Because, like, they're trying to do something with him, and sometimes you get guys that are about to go out of the game that had a big name, and you got an up-and-comer. So even though the guy that's about to leave probably won the fight, what does it do for his career? He's on the way out the door. So,
Right.
But speaking of that, I do want to bring up the topic of judges, because honestly, I do know that one of them judges was way off on that card. But I want to know your opinion right now in the boxing game. How do you see the judging going? Do we need to improve this?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the fact is that people might be shocked to find out how simple it is to become a judge, certainly on a local level, a judge, any type of official on a local level, on a state level. I would assume that to be a judge in the NFL or the Major League Baseball or soccer, you can't just be a fan of the sport and work your way in that way. You have to go through the proper channels to get certified or whatever it is. I know for 100% fact, I won't necessarily name names, but I know for a fact that there have been judges that I've seen who become judges, who've gotten certified, that absolutely had no business being a judge. They didn't have the qualifications, they didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the background, but because they had political affiliations, they were put in that position. Luckily for the sport, they didn't advance past the preliminary level. But, like I say, it can happen. You know, on kind of a side note, but if you remember the Bernard Hopkins and Felix Trinidad fight, which was one of the biggest fights of all time, especially at that time. And normally the New York State Athletic Commission has a certain amount of inspectors, you know, people that are in the dressing room that oversee everything. Normally for a fight, a title fight, you have a certain amount. I don't know if it's 8, if it's 10, if it's 6, whatever it is. For that fight, they literally tripled it because they were having people, literally friends of the commissioner, friends of this guy, friends of that guy, who were getting into the dressing room as an inspector when they literally had no previous experience. They were just put in there because they couldn't get a ticket, so they were put in through the friend of a friend, and they were actually, there was instances where people were actually asking Trinidad and Bernard for autographs and to take pictures. You know, people, the inspectors, they were actually asking them for pictures, which you would never see.
Wow.
So, you know, there's people out there, a handful of people who actually not only got to go to the fight, but got to go in an official capacity in the dressing room. I mean, it literally had no business whatsoever being there. So, who you know, obviously in some cases, is certainly a good thing for them.
Okay, so let's take that to a higher level then. You know, a lot of sports, they have a commissioner. Boxing does not have a commissioner. Do you think that this sport would improve across the board, all the way, you know, worldwide, statewide, if we had a commissioner?
You know, if they had some sort of governing body, but it's, you know, to me, honestly, I mean, it's too confusing, it's too jumbled already, that I don't think, you know, people talk about it, and it's a great idea, but I don't think it could ever be done, because boxing is not run like other sports. For better or worse, it's run differently, and it couldn't be run by like in other words, say for example, in baseball. Now, this is a good thing and a bad thing, but say for example, in baseball, the Yankees and I don't know who, National League team, the Dodgers. Say the Yankees and the Dodgers are the two biggest teams in the world. Like they sell the most tickets, they sell the most merchandise, they're on TV the most, they're the two biggest names in baseball. Well, that doesn't mean anything if they don't make it to the World Series against each other. So, you know, they have to go through the proper channel. They have to play 162 games, they have to play the playoffs, they have to play the championship series, and they have to win. They have to score more runs than their opponent. In boxing, it's not necessarily that way. In boxing, there's no elimination, so to speak. In boxing, you don't fight for a championship unless some guy, in essence, says you're going to fight for it. Don King says you're going to fight for the title, you're going to fight for the title. The promoters have power over the sanction bodies, where in every other sport in the world, the sanction body has all the power. So that's the problem with boxing. Promoters, just like with the catch weights, which is the dumbest thing ever cast upon boxing. The weight class is 147. Miguel Cotto is a 147-pound champion. Period. The fact that he gets to fight at 143 or whatever weight they choose, I don't even know what it was. The sanction body allows that. So the promoters have taken over for the sanction body, as opposed, it should be the opposite. So that's the major problem that spawns all the other problems in our game.
So you just basically said to try to we're too far into the sport to ever even try to think of trying to have a commissioner, because like you said, there's just too many ins and outs, too many jumbled things going on in this sport that we'd never be able to lock it down to a commissioner.
Right, because you know what, we've never, like ideally, here's how you decide who the best is. You have an agreed upon top 12 rankings in each weight class. You have all 12 guys, you do a random draw, you have 6 fights. And then you have 6 winners. And then the 3 fight each other, and the one guy gets the bye. And then the winner of the bye and the winner of the fight fights each other for the ultimate championship. That would be how they do it in baseball, football, basketball, and soccer. They couldn't do that in boxing because one guy wouldn't want to fight the other guy. The style would be wrong. The technique would be wrong. He'd be a southpaw. He'd be promoted by the wrong guy. So there's no way we could get a definitive champion the way our sport is run. And if we change the way it's run, the people who run it wouldn't run it anymore. They would drop out. And the purses would be lower. And there would be, they would try to implement a scale of pay. And that just wouldn't work. You wouldn't have a guy being able to demand huge money because he'd have to follow the scale. So in reality, we're too far gone.
Okay.
We're too far gone. There's no way they could. It's too late for them to have some type of federal commission oversee it the way it was supposed to be. Because if it's run, as crazy as it sounds, if it's run the way it's supposed to be, a lot of people wouldn't box because they wouldn't be able to get those big paydays, and it just wouldn't be, as bad as it is. It might actually be worse because we wouldn't have as many people going into the sport.
Okay. I just wanted to bring up one more side note that I actually forgot, that you have actually helped 4 boxers win world titles, including a female boxer. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Elizabeth Mueller. She was actually my first world champion in 2001. And she actually retired the very next day.
Okay, so that'll go into my next topic. You are a supporter of women's boxing, correct?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, before I started training her, not that I was against it, I didn't care one way or the other about the girls boxing. It didn't make a difference to me. But I'll say this: once I started training her, in particular Elizabeth Mueller, I realized that the women are like amateur boxers in the sense of they don't box unless they really want to box. If a girl gets into boxing, she's getting into it because she really wants to compete. Whereas a lot of male boxers, they get into it as a way to make money. There's nothing else they can do. They got into it as a kid, their father, and they just stayed with it, or whatever the case may be. But women, generally, you don't see many bad fights between women. They may not necessarily be the most skilled, but you don't necessarily see bad fights. You don't see boring fights. So in training Elizabeth, she was as hardworking as any boxer I've ever worked with, including Chad and Jose Rivera and different guys like that. She never said no to anything I ever asked her to do, and so nothing I can say. I can't argue with that, male or female.
Okay, I want to jump to the Knockout Reality Boxing Show, the 2nd season. You were just actually a coach on that. Does that premiere this next month?
I believe it's July 12th is the premiere.
Okay, and now that is on. What's the name of that channel? Nuvo?
One of them is Nuvo, Nuvo, and the other one is Fuse, which I believe is FUST.
Okay. Now, just to break it down for me a little bit, so some of the fans that aren't familiar with the show, kind of give me a breakdown exactly what that show is.
It's similar to the show The Contender that was on NBC years ago. Basically, it's Roy Jones is the host of the show, and myself, Sugar Shane Mosley, and Floyd Mayweather Sr. have teams. We're all three of us are given boxers on our teams, and we train them to box against each other. And then on August 15th at Foxwoods Casino in Connecticut, the remaining boxers will box up against each other in the 3 weight classes. So basically, I box with Floyd's guys and I box against Shane's guys. And whoever's left at the end fights each other for the, I guess you could say, the show's championship.
Now, obviously, you probably can't talk too much about the show because it hasn't actually aired yet, right?
Right.
Okay, but let's just bring up the fact that, okay, now you work with 2 different personalities there with the coaches. You got Shane Mosley and you got Floyd Mayweather Sr. So,
right.
Who did you get along with the most, honestly?
Well, you know what? I kind of knew Shane a little bit beforehand. I had never met Floyd Sr. before. And Shane and I had, I guess, familiarity with each other as boxers. Shane's a laid-back guy. You know, it's kind of hard not to get along with Shane. But I mean, I'll say this: there was a lot of drama on the show, not just between us, but with the other people. But overall, surprisingly, I actually went to the show expecting Floyd and I to butt heads. I really thought, I had my game face on. I really thought we were going to go at it, and I thought that I made up my mind that I'm not going to let him get the upper hand on me. I don't know if he knew who I was beforehand, but I just felt like if he tried to chump me off, that I was gonna stand up to it. And I was gonna give back whatever I got. But to be honest with you, for the most part, I really think that he was a good guy, and we actually had a few times when we were alone together. We actually ate dinner one night, and I really can't say anything bad about the guy. To be honest with you, he's much different in person than most people would probably think from seeing him on TV and being interviewed.
Okay, and speaking of Roy Jones, I know you have actually kind of a long history with Roy Jones, right?
Yes, sir.
So I want your honest opinion. Do you think Roy Jones should retire?
Well, I'm torn on that only because I've always been and always will be of the type that anyone who wants to box, I understand it. I don't care if you're 60. If you tell me you want to fight pro still, I understand why, and I feel the same way, and I know why you feel that way. So it's something that is hard to let go of. So I understand it. And Roy's doing it. I don't feel that he's gonna. Obviously, he's not gonna be who he was. He's not gonna reach the point. So in my mind, on the one hand, I understand that, and I feel like if you're not gonna have any chance at being who you were, then you shouldn't do it. Why would you want to maintain that? But by the same token, I understand why. I understand that even if he can't be who he was, he wants to be who he is, and he's doing it. That's exactly what he's doing. So I just hope he doesn't get hurt. Obviously, but I wish him the best. He's fighting. As far as I know, he has 3 fights lined up, and one of them is actually on the same night as our finale on August 15th. He's fighting the main event on our show.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, speaking of legendary boxers like Roy Jones, let's bring up the greatest boxer of all time, and I know he's by far your favorite, Muhammad Ali.
Yes, sir.
Have you actually ever met Muhammad Ali?
Oh, yeah, no, I've actually met him 4 times. I met him when I was 15 years old in 1983. I met him in 1990. Actually, I met him 2 days in a row in 1990. And then I didn't meet him necessarily. I saw him. I stood right next to him in 2012 in Mexico at the WTT convention. But, to be honest with you, he was in no condition to, I don't know if he was on medication or what it was, but he wouldn't he wouldn't have been, even if they introduced me to him, even if I got to speak to him, I don't think I would have even been able to have a conversation. He did seem really in a good way, to be honest with you. But in 1990, I actually had a conversation with him. I actually laughed with him. I actually showed him my scrapbook, and he read different things in it, and we actually shadow boxed with each other for a while. So yeah, we definitely. He actually remembered me the next morning. I saw him again, and he remembered me from the night before. So that was pretty good.
So is that story true that you read his book, and that kind of is what first started involving you in boxing?
Oh yeah. And that book came out in 1975, and my father had it. And my mother and father were divorced, so I used to stay the weekends with my father. And my father was older at the time, so he was never an athlete or anything, so we didn't really play sports together, things like that. So I was kind of in a situation where I would just amuse myself. And one of the things I used to do was I would read the books. He had 3 books that I read, and one of them was Muhammad Ali's autobiography. And then I would kind of act out the fight scenes on his bed in front of this big mirror, and I would broadcast the fight. I would be the announcer. I would be the referee. I'd be Ali, and so I would do that every weekend. and that book is what kind of spurred me to do that.
Well, that's a pretty cool story. I wanna ask you about something that just probably popped up in the last couple of years, and I want to get your opinion on it. This BKB, this big knockout boxing. What's your opinion on this?
I'm not a fan. I've never watched it, to be honest with you. I've never seen. I know what it is, but I've never watched it. To be honest with you, I'm not a fan of wrestling. I'm not a fan of jiu-jitsu. I'm not a fan of MMA, Pride, any of it. I've never watched any of it. Kickboxing, I've never watched. I don't watch anything but boxing, and it feels almost funny, like when a guy does the what's it called? You say BKB?
Yeah, it's called Big Knockout Boxing, BKB.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I thought it was like Brazilian something boxing. I didn't even know what that stood for, but that's how interested I am. I'm not a fan of it. I'm just a 100% boxing person. I have no interest in that at all.
So you don't know anything about it then?
I know that they don't have a ring. I know that. I guess they box on a platform, and there's no ropes, and that the gloves are smaller, and I think the gloves have a hole in the knuckle or something, but I don't really know. I'm not sure. Yeah,
it's only 2-minute rounds. It's usually 5-minute rounds unless it's for a belt. Then it's 7-minute rounds. And like you said, they fight in a circle that's only 17 feet in diameter. And if they step into what's called the safety zone outside the circle, they can get an 8 count possibly. So I was just curious what you thought about it. I did a little bit of research on it just because I've seen that it's been popping up, and I actually know a local fighter here in Minnesota that's actually fighting, I believe, on one of their cards tonight. So I was just kind of looking into it a little bit.
Right.
On another topic, okay, now a lot of the boxing matches take place in casinos all over the United States. So I want your opinion on why don't we see more Native American pro fighters?
Good question.
Because there's actually a lot of good amateur Native American fighters, but we don't see enough pro ones.
Right. Yeah, I've actually run across quite a few Native American fighters, amateurs, and then the funny thing is they actually have names like Johnny Littlefeather, names like really cultural names. Kids from Wyoming and North Dakota. I don't know. I don't know. I will say this. I don't. I'm very ignorant to the whole thing. I'll just give you my own experience. I was at a reservation. I've heard a lot of the reservations are very similar. I was at a reservation in North Dakota a few years ago for a fight, and I was amazed at how poor it was. The area was very poor. It didn't seem to be a lot of structure with the kids. There was actually a few kids who were in the casino every night and every morning, like 6 in the morning, they'd be in the lobby doing cartwheels, doing flips, and nobody was there to tell them to stop. I didn't get the impression that there was any type of boxing or gyms or even programs for them to do. That's the only thing I can possibly think of. But like I said, as a pro, you haven't seen very many. I know we did have one kid, Sean Hawk. I forget. I think he was from. We actually fought him in his home area. He was from North Dakota. And my boxer at the time, Matt Godfrey, who's actually half Native American, we went to North Dakota to fight Sean Hawk, and we beat him on ESPN. But I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of is maybe on the reservations. There's no boxing coaches. There's no structured boxing right now.
I want to change the topic to the heavyweights. So if Klitschko retires, because I mean the guy's been on top forever, it seems like. I mean, I'm almost kind of getting bored with him, honestly, because nobody can seem to do anything to him. So if he retires, with this crop of heavyweights that we have coming up now, a lot of these young guys and these old guys that don't seem to be doing anything anymore, who takes over the division?
Well, I mean, Wilder is there. He's certainly going to be in the mix. I like him. A lot of people seem to be questioning him, and I can see the reason. But I think he's improving. He's maturing. His strength is obviously evident. I think his boxing skills are improving. If I was to guess, I would say he would be there. I also like Tyson Fury. I like Tyson Fury as a fighter and also as a personality. And then most of the time, going back to the early days of boxing, things kind of ride with the heavyweight champion and how he's doing. And I think a guy like Tyson Fury, he's got the, I kind of call him like the white Muhammad Ali. He's got that gift of gab, and he's kind of funny and he's cocky, and a lot of people probably want to see him shut up. So I think a fight between him and Wilder would be could be built into a super fight that would be more competitive than either of them against Klitschko.
Okay. All right, now to the welterweights. So Mayweather, obviously everybody knows that he's down to one fight on his contract, but he's got to fight, 2 more to 3, I think, actually, to break the record. So, I mean, if he retires, let's say, tomorrow, who takes over the division in the welterweights?
Well, let me say this. Let me interject one thing. As far as the record goes, I've always, my whole life, I've always been under the impression, I've always been told that record is for heavyweights. The 48-0, 49-0 is for heavyweights, not for all of boxing. He would, it would take a heavyweight to break Marciano's record to truly break the record. I mean, Ricardo Lopez had, I believe, 53 or 54 fights without a loss. He had 1 draw earlier in his career.
Okay.
So I think people are, a lot of people bring up Marciano, but that is, for boxing history, that's the heavyweight record. You have a guy like Chavez who was up to 89-0 at one point.
Yeah, I was just going to bring him up.
Before he lost, so Willie Pep and those guys, Ray Robinson, they all reached, I think Robinson reached 40-0, and Pep was like 62-0, 63-0. So as far as I'm concerned, it's the heavyweight record. But in terms of who's going to take over, I think there's a lot of guys, especially in that weight, in that general area with Canelo and Cotto and Thurman and Porter. It's a very, very good weight class. That guys can move up to 54, guys can come down up to 160 Triple G. I think Kovalev and Triple G would probably come out on top. And actually, there's a light heavyweight, another Russian, that's only had about 7 fights by the name of Beterbiev. I don't know if you've seen him yet, but he's literally a monster, and he's literally with only like I said, I think he's got 7 fights. He's literally ready to mix with Kovalev, and Stevenson and all of those guys. He's that good. Like I say, Triple G seems to be the man. And I actually wouldn't be surprised. I know that before Floyd retires, or when he retires, a lot of people are going to bring up Triple G's name and say that Floyd was afraid to move up, which I don't think he is. I think it's just too much of a jump. But I wouldn't be shocked if they drew Floyd out of retirement or away from retirement in order to fight Triple G and kind of solidify his legacy beyond any doubts. I don't think it's a good move, but I wouldn't be shocked if it happened.
Okay. And I just want to bring up the fact that you have not finished your book yet, right? So if anybody's out there looking for it, you have not finished the Iceman Diaries book yet.
No, I've been working on it for a long time, but to be honest with you, I just get sidetracked, with the fighters and different other things I have going on in the boxing. I get a little bit sidetracked. I'm basically close to being finished. It's just a matter of editing more than anything.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm waiting to read it, so.
All right, well, I'll keep that in mind.
I really do want to read it. I actually looked for it before this interview, and then that's when I asked you earlier. I was like, his book must not be finished.
Right. Yeah, no, when I'm done, I will definitely be hyping it up. Like, you'll know it's finished. You'll know when it's done because I will be letting everyone know as frequently as possible.
All right. Well, listen, I got one more question for you, and then I'm going to end on that note. Do you think that boxing needs some type of retirement program for some of these older boxers? There seems to be a lot of them out there that don't have any money left, that are being either they're starting the injuries are wearing on them in retirement and stuff. Do we need something like some of these other sports where when they first come into the game, maybe taking 10% of their earnings or something with a manager and putting them into a fund so they have like a retirement fund?
Right. Well, I've heard people go for that and hype it up, and theoretically it's a good idea. But again, just like I was telling you earlier, as far as the way our structure is, a boxer doesn't have a set salary. So a guy could be number 10 in the world, number 3 in the world, but he could only get 1 or 2 fights a year for whatever reason. So he only makes a very minimal amount that he actually can't afford to put money away because he needs it right then. Most boxers are on their own. They don't have they don't have college educations like the NFL players do. They don't have agents and people that take care of their money. Most of the fighters I know, they take care of their own money. So it's a good idea, but I don't think it would work. I mean, being realistic, it's a great idea, but I just don't think it would work. And I don't think, the fact is, most boxers, even top 10 guys, don't make as much money as people think they do. So there's not really enough money to put away.
Okay.
You get a guy, the worst, I can't say worst, but say a second string kicker on the worst team in the NFL, he still probably makes more money than a lot of guys who are ranked in the bottom half of the top 10 at welterweight in 1 year, believe it or not. So it's a different pay scale, it's a different mentality, and like I said, it would be a good idea, but I don't think it'd be. I think people who tried to implement it would be very frustrated at the fact that it wasn't working.
All right, well, listen, I appreciate your time, John. I'm a huge fan of everything you do, honestly, and it was a great honor to do an interview with you. And I appreciate you being open and honest on all the topics we brought up here today. And I'm looking forward to the book, man, the Iceman Diaries. Hopefully it'll be out soon, so everybody pick it up when it is out there. Because
yes,
something tells me there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff in that book, and there's a lot of big opinions going to be in that book.
Yes, sir. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee you that, and you hit that nail on the head, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you hyping it up, and you will be one of the first people I let know when it is finished.
Well, you know what? I'll even buy a copy from you personally, and hopefully you'll sign it for me.
Oh, of course. That's a no-brainer. I got you covered.
All right, thank you. And the truth has spoken.